Yo, mic check. Yo, can I be heard? Can I be heard? Can I be heard? Let me know so you can't hear me, please. I want a signal, yeah. Let me know so that you can hear me. Cause I want going at this thing different. Yeah, but we got the family, you know what I'm saying, locked in, locked on and all these things, you know, say it's love every time. We got brother Kwame inside, we got Lady Divine. And big up everybody else that's coming through or will come through in a second. Yeah, I'm just on the vibes here. This is very impromptu. I just felt like sharing this. Yeah, and the reason that I felt like sharing this is because obviously I've been in a whole heap of, conversation about religion, yeah, and African spirituality to be specific. And so because of the nature of the conversations, and they've been very debatey, yeah, there's certain things that I haven't got into. And one of them is looking at African spirituality in the Caribbean. And so I've decided, yeah, that I'm gonna do a full presentation, yeah, on that subject there. And we're gonna go in differently, yeah. But I want to look at it from a Pan-African perspective. So we're going to look upon it from the perspective that, in reality, yeah, there are no spiritual traditions in the diaspora, in the African diaspora, and for the to be real, a lot of this happens on the continent as well of Africa. But in particular, in the diaspora, for the sake of this particular conversation, the Caribbean, there are no African spiritual systems that are exclusively of one particular ethnic group, yeah, or so-called tribe, yeah, not a Nogoso. Yeah, there are no spiritual systems yet that just come from one group of people and are not related to other groups of people, yeah. And so provocatively, yeah, I have the term Obia on the screen at the moment. And the reason why I have the term Obia is because I'm being provoking. It's deliberate, yeah. I'm definitely being provoking, because if you come from the Caribbean, you will be familiar with this terminology called Obia, and you will know that it is not looked upon in a very positive light. But the reality is, if you ask most people what is Obia, them can't tell you. And the reason why them can't tell you is because Obia is really just a catch-all terms that colonizers use to describe basically anything spiritual that was African. Yeah, it wasn't. So this is not a terminology that is used to refer to any specific spiritual system or order. Anything can be called Obia. Any and everything can be called Obia. Yeah. So I'm being provoking when I use this terminology. But at the same time, the point is that when you look at African spiritual systems in the Caribbean, they're very Pan-African in that they amalgamate different spiritual systems from different groups and different cosmologies and different understandings of the universe, yeah, which have shared common principles and shared ideals, and they birth and evolve something new, Yeah. So I'm developing a fuller presentation specifically on that, right? We just want to talk about the African spiritual systems in the Caribbean, yeah, and their Pan-African nature. And I want to connect it specifically to rebellions against enslavement and what you call it, you know, rebellions against enslavement and nation building practices, yeah, among Africans in the Caribbean that had the spiritual systems at the center. Yeah. So today we're gonna engage in a little preview of them vibration there. Yeah. I'm not even gonna keep it too long. I just wanna I'm gonna give you a snippet, yeah, just explore the vibes. And I'm doing it now because, like I said, I've been involved in a number of conversations on these topics over the last week and a half, and I haven't really touched on the Caribbean. Yeah, well, I've touched on it, but I want to go in a little further. Yeah, so I've dealt with indigenous spiritual systems among the Zulu, the Kikongo, the Yoruba, the Igbo, yeah, the Kikuyu. I've touched on ancient Kemet. You know what I'm saying? I've touched on the Dogon, yeah. And the reality is that all of the things that I've just mentioned from the various different people groups on the continent actually relate, yeah, to the spiritual systems in the Caribbean. And particularly those of West and Central Africa, because during the enslavement process, there's some more that we come from, yeah, it's West and Central Africa, you know, places that are now called Nigeria and Togo and Benin, and Cameroon and Ivory Coast and Senegal, and Gambia, and Ghana, and all them places there, yeah. And then we have Congo and Angola, yeah, and that region around Lesser, yeah. So a lot of them spiritual systems there relate very much to the ones then that we're having in the Caribbean, and I'm gonna delve into that more in the fuller presentation. So this is just a preview, yeah, a preview, because I know brothers and sisters from the Caribbean, you know, will be very interested, yeah, in how we carried and evolved, you know, certain ideas and practices and systems in the Caribbean. Yeah, I say brothers and sisters will be interested. Not everybody's gonna be interested. Let's be honest, yeah, because enough people born out there something there. But you know what I mean. You know, we are coming with a certain colonial thinking right now. All right, so let's go in. So let me go in on this thing. As you can see, it's a preview. Yeah. A bit like Lady Diva, I'm actually gonna read this before I go in. Yeah. It says my great grandmother was considered an Obia woman back home in St. Lucia. So you know, you're gonna enjoy some of this Lady Divine, because we're gonna take you go to St. Lucia in a little piece, yeah. So hold on. In fact, do you know where your grandmother was from? Your great grandmother was from in St. Lucia. If you do, post it in the chat, yeah. Cause I want to know if you come from when we're gonna talk about later on. All right. So stay tuned, yeah. Stay tuned. Because she knew how to cure illness and her knowledge of herbs, and bush science. Ashe, give thanks. All right. So yeah, man, you know, we have to know these things because many of our family members, you know, from our great grandparents' generations and prior to, were stigmatized. But we come from Balata. Okay, it's not quite the place where I was gonna go, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll see it. We'll see. It might even get a mention, you know. You know, but we'll see. We'll see where I go. All right. We're gonna take you guys to St. Lucia soon. Yeah. Yeah, so many of our grandparents and these things, our foreparents, were demonized and stigmatized and sometimes brutalized, yeah. You know, because them live close to the earth and all them something there. And they were stigmatized with this term obia, yeah. And like I said, obia is a term that was weaponized by the colonizer, yeah, and it means anything African. Two terms were already weaponized. Obia and voodoo. And it mattered not whether specifically or strictly speaking, the tradition, because voodoo or voodoo or voodoo is an actual spiritual system. Obia is not, yeah? Like I said, Obia is a catch-all term that was weaponized by the colonizer, you know, to demonize certain things. And so we use it, it's often used now, but when I use it, I'm being provoking because, you know, I know some people run from them terminology there. Or we are going at some things today. So like I said, it's a preview, yeah. This is just a preliminary, yeah, overview of certain vibes that I'll go deeper into when I do the fuller presentation, which will probably be next month. All right, probably be next month. I'm going to look at it specifically from the perspective of revolutions and rebellions. Yeah. So most of what I share today will in fact be taken from a particular book, yeah, and it just helps us to give an overview, which we'll get into in a second. But you can see the word Kimoyo here, and for those who don't know, Kimoyo just means basically African spirituality, or it's a term that we use to refer to African spirituality that we're popularizing more. And more specifically, it's a Kikongo terminology, which means well, I should say it's a term that you'll find in many so-called Bantu languages. Kikongo is a Bantu language. Yeah, the word moyo means life. Yeah, vital force, vital energy, vital essence. You know what I'm saying, things like that. It also, but in other languages like Kiswahili, you'll find that it means heart, yeah. And so you generally find it in across a lot of different Central, Eastern, Southern African languages. You'll find the word moyo, and you'll find versions of it in other languages in West Africa, which I won't go into now. But it basically pertains to life, but not just life in the very essence, yeah. The foundational, vital force that brings forth life. All right. So when we say Kimoyo, we mean oh, and it also means spirit, yeah, because of the fact that life it can also be translated as spirit from an African cosmological point of view. All right. So when we talk about Kimoyo, we'll talk about the dynamic vital force, yeah. And sometimes you'll see it read or translated as of the spirit. In fact, there are the term Kimoyo is actually used, yeah, in the Black Panther universe. All right, and enough people believe said the thing come from Black Panther. And I say it got. In fact, I even heard recently that a brother who speaks Zulu and Shona was even saying that the term comes from Black Panther. The brother happens to be a Christian. And so I don't know whether that was dishonesty or lack of knowledge, yeah. But no, the term Kimoyo is actually a legitimate term in Bantu languages, yeah. And so the Black Panther got it from the Bantu languages, all right. So that's what the term means, yeah. And for a deeper explanation, we're going to go to this book by a Kikongo ancestor who now log this name, yeah. Log this name. In fact, let me change the format of this thing so you can see everything proper. All right. Log the name Kimbwandende Kiabonseki Fukiao, or just Baba Fukiao, yeah. Because when I go into the fuller presentation, he's a Kikongo initiate, right, into spiritual systems in the Congo. And in Jamaica, we have a thing called Kumina, yeah, which is a Bakongo tradition, right, that was brought from Central Africa to Jamaica. And Baba Kimbwanden de Kiabonseki Fukiao has a paper where he actually explored the Kumina tradition, yeah, in Jamaica, and drew some of the linkages, yeah, between the languages and the terminologies that were being used, yeah, by the Kumina practitioners in Jamaica, and the Kikongo language, yeah. So that's going to be a powerful addition to the fuller presentation, all right. But for now, we just want Baba Kimbwanden de Kiabonseki Fukiao to explain Kimoyo, because this is where many of us who are using this terminology got the terminology from. So he says Moyo means vital power. The vital power Moyo came to exist on earth after Futu, which is the container of something secret or of great price, was completely tied up, which means that it was completely whole. Yeah, and so life was able to fill it. The Futu and its contents were ready to secure life to be born on earth. Moyo is, in this language, Kikongo, is universal matter. Yeah, it is something both inside and outside. Moyo is what is. Everything is a manifestation of Moyo, life. Yeah, the vitality of life. It is the key word to Kibantu, the Bantu way of life. Their philosophy is Kimoyo. Vitalism is their religion, and it is not animism. All right. So it's the same. I say it's not animism, and that's because many times, yeah, in the demonization of African spiritual traditions, you will find terms like animism used and idolatry. fetish, pagan, heathen, kuffar, and shirk, yeah, depending on your belief system. And mostly these are descriptions used by Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, to describe things where them don't understand, yeah, and indigenous African spiritual systems. And so oftentimes when you see people speaking about African spiritual systems, they will be burdened with the necessity to undo and attack certain misconceptions. Big up my brother MA, yeah, in the building, Mr. Bunya. Yes, we are live, King. We are live, yeah, with their live. It's an impromptu thing. We'll see for all our vibes. And I'm not going to be very long. Having said that, if brothers and sisters want to come and join me a little bit later on, let me know and I will share the link. All right. Big up Fitawari Fitness. I forget where you're there, you know. I Trinidad you there, Fitawari. I Trinidad you there. Somewhere in the Caribbean you there. Can't remember where you're there. You know what I mean? So we give thanks. We got to Miss Amelia as well, yeah. So we're using the term Kimoyo because we understand that it's more descriptive. When we say African spirituality, it's useful for communication purposes in this time, yeah. But the term Kimoyo actually gets to the heart of what we are dealing with, yeah, in terms of the cosmology and the understanding that is at the basis of African spiritual systems. All right. So when I discard the term African spirituality, you know, I want you to know that. But it is a placeholder and it has use in this day and age because we are restoring certain cultural and trying to resolve certain cultural and identity issues. Yeah, and enough are we afraid for say African, yeah, and for say Africa and for identify with Africanness. And so we're sharing these information because it's one, because it's true, and two, because it helps to dispel certain misconceptions and certain myths and helps us to evolve our culture and understand it better as well. Because I'm playing, oh, by the way, I should have explained that video that I was playing at the beginning is a Voodoo ceremony in Haiti. Yeah. So you can see that the 80 vibration. That's all. You know what I mean? Now, when see. Yeah. So when what I say? Sorry, maneuver train of thought. Yeah. So yeah, it's a Voodoo ceremony in Haiti, yeah. And when I was playing the video, Lady Divine said, "Yo, it come like soca." Yeah. So so yeah, and that's the vibration, kings and queens. Yeah. Now, much of our music in the Caribbean, yeah, is African music. Yeah, it comes from the restoration and the preservation of our spiritual systems. So when you say soca and you say calypso and you say kaiso and you say mento, yeah, it come from kumina and buro and tabu and bambula, yeah, and all these things, yeah. These music forms that represent that are part of spiritual systems. Mwela, is that Kikongo, Bunya? Let me know what that means. I have an idea, yeah. I have an idea because in a Kumina, them say melam or mele. So yeah, let me know what that means. All right. All right. So let's go ahead and let's thing. Yeah. So the book I'm going to refer to most today, yeah, is this book, History of the Religions of the Caribbean. All right. And all I really want to do is just demonstrate that we have a number of African spiritual traditions. I'm not going to go into them today. We're going to see if that. Yeah. Okay. Muela. Right. Okay. Cool. That's why I know it's still, if I ask these questions. So it's a like Dominica, St. Lucia, Haiti type vibes. All right, cool. So it's the broken African French with the French. All right, but yeah, this book, History of the Religions of the Caribbean by Dale Bisnov. Yeah, it's a very useful book still. It goes into some useful information and an overview. Yeah, it doesn't just focus on African spiritual intentions. It talks about Christianity. It talks about Islam and even the religions that were brought from Asia. Yeah, like the Sikh and the Hindu and all them something there. So it's a very useful overview of these things. Yeah. So big up to my brothers and sisters from Dominica and St. Lucia and them place there. I love you know what I'm saying. But yeah, so he begins, as far as I'm gonna quote today, yeah. Like I said, we're not gonna be here long. I just wanted to preview the thing. and speak about some of the African spiritual retentions in the Caribbean within this energy that I've been wrapped up in for the last week or so. All right. So he says, indigenous African religions, however, did survive the difficulties of estate life. This testified to the vitality of those beliefs and to the reality of the Weltan Shuang, yeah, which just means worldview, all right? Which the world is it's a German word. Weltan Shuang is a German word which means worldview, yeah. The world picture which those beliefs provided for the Africans in their homeland. All right. So he's saying here that the African spiritual systems that came to the Caribbean, yeah, had a particular worldview, yeah. They had similar cosmology, similar ethics, yeah, similar morals, similar rituals, similar ways of looking at the cosmos, ways of looking at the human being. All right. And that is considered to be a Weltan Shuang or worldview or world picture. All right. And so he said, which those beliefs provided for the Africans in their homeland. In the Caribbean, however, African religious ideas were to undergo significant changes, but they remained recognizably African in structure. Two factors were mainly responsible for these changes. In the first place, African religious ideas were capable of modification. Very important, yeah, capable of modification, all right, in response to new circumstances of estate life. Secondly, the practice of African religion was frowned upon by the estate authorities. This meant that the religion could only be practiced clandestinely and irregularly. Yeah, the result was that some aspects of African religious practices withered away. All right. So we say we're going to highlight two aspects of this now, yeah, which relate to the last two sentences. The first is the idea that African spiritual systems are capable of modification. And this is because, again, of the worldview, yeah? The worldview is about harmony with nature, all right? So effectively, wherever an African spiritual system is situated, it will shape itself according to the natural environment that it is in. Yeah. So if we not have a particular herb, yeah, in a Jamaica where we did have on the west coast of Africa, we're gonna find one next herb, yeah, where serve the same purpose. And that's it, yeah. If we can practice the thing publicly in the open, yeah, when we use tree, yeah, for conduct ceremony and all them something there, we can't use tree no more because we're there in a slavery. So we can't there in the open, yeah. So we have to go find some cave and some hill and gully, yeah, for go practice the thing in that, yeah, and all them something there. If we're not honoring like say we have 300 different divinity where we acknowledge, we might whittle it down to 20 or 7, yeah, and maybe encapsulate some divinities into other divinities and all them something there for the sake of continuing the thing. All right. And this is because the spiritual systems are not heavy on dogma and doctrine. So like most of the religion where we know about, yeah, and again, this is not a critique, yeah, this is just a observation, and it's the truth, yeah. So the dominant world religions that we know about in terms of the Abrahamic, they're very doctrinal. They have a specific dogma, and it not supposed to change from what they in the book, yeah. And African spiritual systems, and in fact, most indigenous spiritual systems on the planet have less of an emphasis on strict kind of dogmatic proselytization and more just a way of life that is seeking to be in harmony with nature. I have all on the proceedings because I mean, big celebrity just jumping on the chat, so we have to big up the legend that is content over everything. I'm saying big up yourself, my G. You don't know. And we have to talk still, you know, because we have some unfinished situation to deal with still. All right. So big up yourself, King. So yeah, so there's capable of modification, and this is essential because of the first line here. Indigenous African religious ideas did, however, survive the difficulties of estate life, and that is because of the fact that the capabilities of modification, but also it was a way of life. So there was there's no department of the community. Yeah, we don't have politics and spirituality separate from politics, or economics and spirituality separate from economics. It was all a part of the people's livity, their lifestyle. And so whenever as it evolved, naturally cultures evolve, and therefore spiritual systems will evolve. All right. And secondly, we're going to focus on this a little bit today, but it's the idea that the fact that the plantation authorities, yeah, the enslaver, the criminal enslaver, didn't just frown upon African spiritual systems, but committed violence against them psychologically and physically, and even passed laws, yeah, to ban certain and certain things. All right. And so that obviously had an impact, yeah, on how things were practiced, and that even means that even contributes to this concept called obia, and what comes to be known as obia, yeah, because if you can't use something in the open, then you're going to use it under the quiet, yeah. And within certain spiritual systems, or there's a light. Nobody knows for sure where the term obia derives from, its etymological root, but some of the suggestions about its derivation suggest that it refers specifically to when a ritual is done under the cloak, yeah, quietly, secretly, rather than publicly for the benefit of the community. All right. So that's one thing we have to deal with, yeah. Big up to Dr. Talawa, yeah, in the building, yeah. One big up Dr. Talawa. You don't know, my brother. Respect Joe, you know what I'm saying. And if you don't know about Dr. Talawa, get to know about Dr. Talawa. You don't know, yeah. A serious brother in this, all right. So yeah, we'll just touch upon certain things, yeah. As I said, for those who are just coming through, I'm just touching on some aspects of African spiritual systems in the Caribbean, because, you know, I've been wrapped up in some religious conversation recently, and I haven't really gone in on this, but I'm planning a fuller presentation on this topic. So we'll just preview the thing. I'll touch upon it and keep it moving. And most of what we touch on today is going to be taken from the book The History of Religions in the Caribbean by Dale Bisnoff. All right. So let us continue. Him said, given the massive difficulties which the practice of African religion faced in the Caribbean, it must surely be one of the most remarkable things in the region's history that so many aspects of that religion survived. One such aspect was the African belief in the existence of an almighty God. Yeah. So interesting occurrence, yeah, that we can find in the Caribbean is that there are many words for God, or what we might refer to as God, understanding that when we say God, it don't really encapsulate what we mean when we say, words in a free language, yeah, but for communication purposes, God. And so many terms that are used in the Caribbean for God actually come from Africa. Yeah. And so the people of West Africa, from among whom the slaves were recruited, I'm going to have to say enslaved Africans. So you might hear me repeat replace the word slaves with enslaved Africans, because slave tends to dehumanize people, our ancestors. And we want to affirm the humanity. So our ancestors were enslaved human beings, enslaved people, enslaved Africans, yeah? Were recruited, from whom the enslaved Africans were recruited, knew this deity by several names. The Akan-speaking Ashanti, Fanti, and Brong peoples knew him as Nyame or Nyankopong, yeah? And if you go Jamaica, and you go among the Maroon, the Yankono, yeah, the Cromanti, yeah, and yes, if you're speaking in the Cromanti language, yeah, which is spoken in Jamaica, and Cromanti is a place in West Africa in the region that is now called Ghana. So when we hear Cromanti language in Jamaica, we know it comes from West Africa. Yeah, you will still hear among the so-called Maroon them refer to the creator as Nyame or Nyankopong, and I believe Nyankopong is more popular, yeah, or Akompong. And so you have an Akompong town. Some say it's derived from a person called Akompong, which there is a name, Achempong, that could be the case, but some actually suggest that it's actually from the deity, the supreme creator, and the name for the supreme creator, which is Nyankopong, yeah. The Yoruba of the lower Niger, Central Dahomey, and Togoland called him Oludumare or Olorun, yeah. The Ewe speaking Fon of Abome, Alada, and Porto Novo, the Get of Togo, and the Ga of the Gold Coast called him Mawu, yeah. And so you find this word in various different places as well. Especially you find Mawu in some places like Haiti and I believe Suriname as well, and a couple others. But the full terminology is Mawu Lisa Sebo, yeah. And Mawu is the feminine aspect of the creator. Lisa is the masculine, and Sebo is the unseen, yeah. You know what I'm saying? The unseen element, the mystical, mysterial element, you know? And then among the Igbos, you have Choko. And so you'll find different places in the Caribbean, you find all of these names that still exist for the creator. All right. So we'll just touch upon these things, yeah. And so he goes on, despite the attitude of the plantocracy to African religious practices in the Caribbean and the formal legislation against such practices, the worship of African divinities survived. In Guyana, Komfo, i.e. Akomfo, I'm going to explain that in a second, so hold tight, dancing with its emphasis on spirit possession has had a long tradition. In Trinidad, the worship of Shango, Ogun, Eshu, and other recognizably African spirits survived. In San Domingo, Haiti, the worship of African divinities was to combine with that of the Roman Catholic saints. Meanwhile, it was noted by Brian Edwards that the Cromantin, or the Cromanti, i.e. Ashanti, and really the Cromanti is more than just Ashanti, but they're Ashanti dominant, yeah, in terms of population. But you have people that are not necessarily Ashanti that would be considered Cromanti, yeah. In the 18th century, Jamaica worshipped Asasi or Assassina, yeah, which is, I'll explain it in a second. The so-called Bush Negroes, yeah, of Suriname worship gods whom they associate with the woods and the rivers in the manner of their African forefathers. And I put in square brackets here, Winty. Winty is not in the book, but I know what he's referring to, so I put it there to make sure that I refer to it and come back to it. And then, Lady Divine, your time, the Kele ceremony, as well as the Katumba or Kutumba, so that first A could be a U, yeah, and we're going to go more into Kutumba later on, so stay tuned, all right? Dance which survived in St. Lucia undoubtedly had its origins in the worship of African divinities. In the French islands in the 18th century, the belief in the water mother or Mami Wata, yeah, so around the Caribbean, you hear the term Mami Wata a lot, and that's the water mama, yeah, existed as it did in the Dutch colony of Suriname. All right, so let's go into a few things here. First, we see this thing about farmer legislation against such practices, yeah? And so in a number of different Caribbean islands, there were literal laws, yeah, against the practice of African spiritual systems. There are places during enslavement whereby the beating of the drum was banned, yeah? And hands could be chopped off for beating the drum. Tongues could be cut out of heads, yeah, for speaking African languages. And this is partly because of the significance of drum and speech within the restoration and retention of African spiritual systems, and the fact that these African spiritual systems were used to organize people to rebel against enslavement. And so, for example, in 1760 in Jamaica, we have Taki, the Taki War, yeah, Chief Taki, or Taichi, or Teichi, yeah, as he might probably, or Tachi, as he might probably, more properly, sorry, be called, yeah, an ancestor who is responsible for leading the largest anti-slavery rebellion in the Caribbean prior to that of Haiti. All right, so Haiti was a bigger anti-slavery rebellion, but before that, the biggest one was 1760 with Taki. And Taki, I believe, St. Mary it started, yeah, St. Mary, Taki come from. And the plan was to basically wipe out all of the enslaver, yeah, the Bakra, yeah, on the island, and institute an African communal government, yeah, on the island of Jamaica. But the primary organizing tool, yeah, for that rebellion is what is called Mayal, yeah. Mayal is an African spiritual retention that is amalgamated of various different African spiritual systems, but dominant from the Akan, yeah, the Akan communities. And the term Mayo refers to spirit, and more specifically possession of the spirit, you know, by the spirit, yeah. And so Mayal is related to what is called Obia. All right, Mayal is related to what is called Obia. Still, you've been reading which book content, and make sure you're not behind. Did you go back to the beginning? Make sure you're there live. You can go back and watch it. You know what I mean? But stay alive with the thing. Yeah. What may I say now? Yeah. All right. So what happened is, after 1760, the British colonizer, yeah, enacted a legislation that banned what it referred to as Obia, and Obia was any African spiritual practice. And this is why I say Obia, strictly speaking, is not a spiritual system. Yeah, it's a word that is used to refer to. Yeah. May I read that one there too? So we're gonna go deeper into Taki's rebellion. Vincent Brown's book, yeah, man, serious book that, yeah. So yeah, we're gonna go. I'm gonna be quoting liberally from that when I do the fuller presentation. All right, but we see say Obia, yeah, or what was referred to as Obia, was used. Yeah, so Taki is said to be an Obia man, and within the context of the fact that you had different Africans from different places, and sometimes the places that the different Africans come from on the continent, there was friction between them. They had political disputes. They had sometimes they were at war. Yeah, they had military disputes as well. And so what happened is in Jamaica, that the Obia man and the Obia woman were the people that were able to unify and galvanize the people there. Yeah, so they held what is called oath taking ceremonies, and you find oath taking ceremonies as a key feature throughout throughout rebellions, anti-slavery rebellions in the Caribbean and the Americas in general. All right, you'll find the existence of oath-taking ceremonies, and usually at the heart of these oath-taking ceremonies, you're going to find some African spiritual system. All right, and so because of the role of the Obia man and woman in terms of organizing the people, yeah, and actually leading the rebellion, and providing the philosophical and spiritual foundation that underpinned why the people them did a fight in the first place, the British banned what it referred to as Obia. And would you believe, family, that to this day, that law from 1760 still stands, yeah, in Jamaica. Yeah, Obia, what is referred to as Obia, is still banned. African spiritual systems are still banned by law, yeah, in Jamaica. Yeah. So that's one piece of explanation. We're going to go more into that when I do the fuller presentation, maybe in about a month's time. Yeah. So like I said, kings and queens, but let's do a little preview, yeah, of some African spiritual retentions in the Caribbean. Because in the last week or so, I focused quite a lot on the original evolutions on the continent, and have not really dealt with the Caribbean. So I want to just add this in the mix. You know what I mean? Especially for my brothers and sisters from the Caribbean. All right, because I want to know these things. Yeah. So from 1760 and up, yeah, the thing still banned. Yeah, all right. So we'll get more into that little later on. In Guyana, comfort, i.e., akomfo, dancing with its emphasis on spirit possession has had a long tradition. So what is comfort? Comfort is a spiritual tradition in Guyana. It is the word comfort, as you can see here, is taken from the term akomfo. Akomfo or okomfo is the term for priests, yeah, in Akom, the Akan spiritual system. So the Akan, yeah, the Ashanti, the Fanti, and so on and so forth, the spiritual system is often referred to as Akom, and the priest is Okomfo. The Okomfo with an O is singular. Akomfo is plural. Yeah. So you will see the spiritual system in Guyana referred to as Comfo or Comfa, and I believe I've even seen Compa. Yeah. But you can see that it's derived from the Akan, yeah, spiritual system, and the spiritual system is centered around ceremony, a dance ceremony, which honors ancestors. Yeah. And I believe I do have a video of Sister Michelle Assantewa, yeah, previously on this platform where I interviewed her because she's written actually a book on comfort. Yeah. So do check that out when you feel to. All right. So we see in Trinidad you have the Shango and the Ogun and the Eshu. And by the way, normally for these conversations, I've been playing the music of Ella Andel, yeah, Ella Andel Shango, yeah, and she is from Trinidad, all right. So she's one of the leaders of the Shango community, or the Ifa, or the Isheshe, or the Yoruba, or the Orisha community in Trinidad. And Shango, Ogun, and Eshu, for those who may not be aware, are part of the Orisha, which is the divinities, the principles of divine principles and forces of nature as associated with the Yoruba, yeah, in West Africa. All right, so you have Shango, you have Ogun, and you have Eshu, yeah, and you'll find these divinities still honored in Trinidad. What do I need to go into here? So, all right, so this idea of the worship of African divinities was combined with that of the Roman Catholic saints, yeah? And this is true, but it oversimplifies the thing. Really what was going on is that Africans used the Roman Catholic saints to hide their practice of voodoo, yeah, to mask it, because you could be punished for practicing voodoo, especially after 1804. And the success of the Haiti Revolution. But even before that, because in 1770s, I think it was, Macandal, yeah, Macandal was on the scene in Haiti, and he was referred to as an Obiaman, yeah, or a Vodun priest, and he planned an enslavement rebellion whereby he planned to poison all of the back of them upon the island of Haiti, all right? And so the European, coming out of Taki, coming out of Macandal, and a number of other anti-slavery rebellions, they were very sensitive about the spiritual systems, yeah? And so because of that, what the African ancestors did was they used certain Catholic saints and their depictions to represent certain what is referred to as Loa. So the Loa in Voodoo are the same thing as the Orisha in the Yoruba, yeah, or in the Ifa. They're the principles of the principal divinities and the forces of nature. So, for example, and I forget what the saint is, but there's a saint in Catholicism that is typically depicted with snakes, yeah, at his feet. And so the African ancestors in Haiti used that image to represent Papa Dambala, because Papa Dambala is a particular divinity, yeah, is often depicted also with snakes, yeah, or represented through snakes, yeah, and so they use that, yeah. But when the white man, when Bakra believes in them, you know, honor whichever saint that is, yeah, really the African them concerned with the snake them not concerned with the with the man, yeah, in the image, them concerned with the snake them, yeah, because the snake represent Dambala, all right. So I hope that makes sense. Assassina is the Akan divinity that is associated with Mother Earth. Yeah, Assassina is Mother Earth. All right. And you'll find various different narratives. I contact you're idiot, you're a full idiot, but yeah. Yeah. What's it called? So yeah, Assassina is Mother Earth, yeah. So basically, this is a the Mother Earth is a divine, a divinity, she's a divine being, all right. And it's an aspect of Nyankopong on Nyame, yeah. And so in some narratives you find Assassina associated with Nyankopong, in some narratives you find Assassina associated with Anansi, yeah, Kweku Anansi, all right. And yeah, we'll go further into that. Now, let's get into this thing. The Bush Negroes of Suriname worship gods whom they associate with the woods and the rivers in the manner of their African forefathers. So in Suriname, you have a spiritual system that is called Winti, yeah? And this is a very beautiful, beautiful spiritual system, yeah? And it seems to me that they've been able to codify it on levels that are comparable to that of Vudan in Haiti. So a lot of the times, because of the ways in which African spiritual systems in the Caribbean are practiced, yeah, there's not the structure can be very loose, yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? Not always, but it can be very loose. All right, the institutionalization of it. Well, it seems to me that that Winti, yeah, in Suriname has developed more of a definitive structure to it, yeah. And so Winti is made up of a number of different spiritual systems, but the main ones, to my understanding, are the Akan, yeah, or Akom, and the Fon or the Vudan, yeah. And the Fon and the Vudan is related to the Yoruba, all right. And within Winti, you have various different pantheons, yeah, various different segments of what would be referred to as Orisha in other traditions, yeah. So Winti is spirit, all right. And you have an earth pantheon, you have a forest pantheon, there's a sky pantheon, and you have a water, yeah, pantheon. A pantheon is just a group of divinities, yeah, that are associated with each other. And what may I say? I'm trying to think if there's anything I'm missing on this issue of Winti. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Winti was also banned, yeah, in Suriname. It was also banned in Suriname, I believe sometime in no, actually, I think it was banned in Suriname after the enslavement process. So, slavery was abolished in Suriname in the 1860s, yeah, 1860 something, and it was banned after that because, again, of its association with anti-slavery uprisings and rebellions and all of these things. But apparently, more recently, it's been getting more recognition in Suriname. But we'll probably go more into that when I do the fuller presentation. You know what I mean? So it says now it's a Kele, the Kele ceremony, as well as the Katumba or Kutumba, yeah, of the that survived in St. Lucia, undoubtedly had its origin in the worship of African deities. Yeah, so we're gonna get a bit more into Katumba in a little piece. All right, so I'm not gonna dwell on it right here. Yeah. So let's hold tight for that. But I'm doing this again because I want people to know, yeah, the linkages. Like when we say Caribbean people are anything like that, yeah, we have to realize that what unites us is our African culture, and so we want to see the different retentions, yeah, of the African culture that we have, yeah, from them time, yeah, till now, yeah. So when we say Kele, they're dealing with the same divinities that are mentioned here, yeah. The principal ones being Shango, Ogun, and Eshu, yeah, that you see in Trinidad, All right, that's a Yoruba influence once again. Yeah, so you'll find among the Kele people them, the Shango, the Ogun, and the Yoruba and other Orisha. I'm gonna save Katumba for a little later on. All right, because I don't want to keep the people them long. It's not going to be a long thing today. In Spanish Cuba, the second half. Sorry, in Spanish Cuba of the second half of the 19th century, the Lokomi Negroes, and forgive me, Lokomi should be highlighted here, worshipped the recognizably. Sorry, let me read it first, and I'll come back to explain it. Recognizably Yoruba gods Obatala, Shango, Elegua, and Ogun. Some features of Lokomi worship resembled that of the African worship of Obosom. Yeah. In Akan worship, a brass pan was usually regarded as the localized dwelling place of the Obosom. On solemn occasions, the pan was filled with medicinal herbs and various sacred objects. The god was summoned to take up his residence in the pan by sounding of bells and by a ceremonial dance in which priests, priestesses, and worshippers participated. All right, so let's touch on this now. Lokomi is a spiritual system as well as what might be considered an ethnic group, yeah, or a people group, let's say, in Cuba. But it also refers to the spiritual system, and they also refer to the Lokomi as Regla de Ocha. Ocha is a development on the word Odisha, yeah, and Santeria, yeah, and Santeria is oftentimes considered to be the white man Obia, so the white man Ifa, yeah, the white man Orisha worship, because it's very watered down, all right. But Lokomi is considered to be the deeper aspect of the thing, yeah. Obosom is the true word or the Akan word, which means the same thing as Orisha, which means the same thing as Loa. Yeah, so these are the divinities. Obosom being a singular divinity, Abosom being the collective. All right. So when you see A in Chi, it's collective, it's plural. Yeah. When you see O, it's singular, and these things. All right. And we make reference to a particular ritual there that exist on the continent of Africa, but also exist in the Caribbean. Yeah. So when I go dwell upon that one day, because this is not a long thing today, but it's touching. I'm just introducing the thing for those who are coming in late. Yeah, I've been in debate and conversation in recent weeks about African spiritual systems, African religions, and Abrahamic religions. And as a part of all those debates, one thing that wasn't touched on sufficiently was African spiritual retentions in the Caribbean. Yeah. So I am just touching on that today, and it is a preview, a preliminary exploration of a presentation that I'm constructing dealing with Pan-African spirituality in connection with rebellions, yeah, against slavery and colonization in the Caribbean. And I'm going to be doing that next month, hopefully. All right. So I wanted to do a preview, yeah, just lay the foundation, just to say these are some of the African spiritual systems in the Caribbean. And I'm drawing from the text, The History of Religions in the Caribbean by Dale Bisnoff. Yeah. A second change, he says, that took place in the Caribbean was that the divinities of the different tribes became grouped together as enslaved Africans of different tribal backgrounds were made to live and work together on the same plantation. This merging of the gods, so to speak, was facilitated by the fact that many of the tribal divinities differed in names. That while many of the tribal divinities differed in names, they shared almost identical attributes and functions. Thus, the Ewe, Zevioso, was for all sort of practical purposes identical with Shango of the Yorubas. Generally, the name of the god of the dominant tribal group survived. Thus, in northern Haiti, the Igbo, Congo, and Arada names for many West African divinities gave way to Yoruba names. Yeah. So I want to emphasize this. This is an essential, fundamental, consequential point. Right, yeah, so. This are the thing, yeah. Well, we need to understand this something, yeah. So when we talk about African spirituality, enough people vex when we say them something there. Them say, well, yeah, go on like say everybody dip on the same thing and everybody practice the same thing and them now difference and all them something. But we don't deal with the well and strong, the German word, I mean worldview. Yeah, we have to deal with the worldview. And so because of the fact here that people underestimate first and foremost the extent to which African spiritual systems on the continent actually have a shared ancestry. Yeah, them derive from the same thing. Yeah, because the only people group where you see today in Africa, some of them not all. Yeah, they are offshoots of larger people groups. Yeah, and sometimes amalgamations of smaller people groups. All right. So we have to understand the development of what they call tribes. Yeah, quote unquote, on the African continent. All right. But secondly, we have to understand how we evolve as people, African people in the Caribbean. Yeah. So when we see Voodoo in Haiti, and we know that the word Voodoo or voodoo is derived from the word Voodoo, which is a part of the fun language, that no means that the whole of the people in Haiti is fun. Because them Ewe, them is also Yoruba, them is also Akan, them is also Kikongo, them is also Umbundo, and all these things. Yeah. And so you see all of these spiritual systems that are merged together and evolve, and the language that you find, yeah, is usually the language of the people group that is most populous at a particular moment in time, and sometimes that will change. Yeah. And the more I study these things, I'm coming to the understanding or the conclusion, and I could be wrong. Well, I don't think I'm wrong really, that Congo is the secret power. Yeah. The Bakongo vibration, yeah, is foundational to a significant amount of African spiritual and cultural retentions in the Caribbean. Yeah. All right. The Congo thing very serious. And obviously the Ifa and the Yoruba takes up a lot of space because of the language. Yeah. So we easily identify Shango and Eshu, and they're very widespread. But oftentimes there are some subtle Congo-isms, yeah, that we might miss in that mix. All right. And so hopefully we'll get into that more in the fuller presentation, especially when we are dealing with the Kumina. Yeah, the Kumina vibration coming out of Jamaica. All right. Don't worry, St. Lucia people. I'm still gonna get back to the Katumba. Yeah, all on, tight, all on. You know what I mean? All on. And yeah, I'm soon done. Like I said, I want to stay long today. But if anybody does want to come live, let me know, and we'll have a bit of a conversation still. All right. So that was that's my last slide from that book. I'm gonna do one more. I'm gonna play a couple videos. Yeah, just to demonstrate this point even more. In terms of, sorry, I should say here, right? So when I talk about the Pan-African nature, yeah, the Pan-African nature of African spiritual retentions in the Caribbean, we're not just talk, we're not just laba, yeah, are some serious business we are dealing with. And practically, yeah, when we talk about Pan-Africanism, the unity of African people, our people group formation, our identity formation, and our culture in the Caribbean is inherently and unequivocally Pan-African in nature. Yeah, we can't get away from that. Yeah, because we are not just Yoruba, we are not just Bakongo, we are not just Ewe, we are not just Igbo, we are not just Akan. Yeah, we are not just Fon, we are not just Mande. Yeah, we are all of them something there, and the evolution of all of them thing there. Yeah, and there is no greater testimony to that than our spiritual systems, because the spiritual systems is where you're gonna find the depth of the culture, the philosophy, the cosmology, the ethics. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Because if you look Pam Kumala, you could just say, well, yeah, it's a dance. Yeah, and you might say it's a ritual, but unless you go in at the Kumina and you go in at the language of the Kumina, yeah, you now get the full essence of the thing. You know, see? So when we do the fuller presentation, we want to go into the essence of the thing. We want to go behind the dance and wind up and drum up. Yeah, and we love that too. We love the dance and wind up and drum up. But the dance and the wind up and the drum up is symbolic, yeah, of a relationship with the universe, a relationship with the cosmos, a relationship with nature, a relationship with the ancestors, a relationship with each other and the wider community. And that way I say it. So we want to emphasize that point here. Yeah, that Fiwi culture, whether we come from Jamaica, Trinidad, Montserrat, St. Lucia, Suriname, Belize, Guatemala, St. Vincent, yeah, Dominica, Haiti, yeah, Barbados. Fiwi culture is a Pan-African culture. Yeah, we just have to know them something there and affirm them something there without fear or favor. Now beg no friend who want vex. All right. So let's get to this. I'm gonna do one more slide. I'm gonna touch on some. We're gonna go to St. Croix and then we're gonna go to St. Lucia. Yeah. There are also different. This is taken from Ancestral Voices by Dali and Adolfo. And if you don't have Ancestral Voices, get it. It's a very small book. And they've also got 2 DVD documentaries that you can get, you know what I'm saying, to heighten and elevate your knowledge, yeah, upon subjects such as these. All right. And I should also say that they actually traveled to gather the work, yeah, and the information for the documentary. So they traveled to South Africa, they traveled to Haiti, they traveled to Brazil. I believe they also traveled to Cuba, yeah, and them have more traveling for do. Ghana as well, and them have more traveling for do. You know what I mean? So this is about the evolution now of African spiritual systems in the Caribbean. He says there are also differences in the types of forces. There are those that are ancient in origin and have served communities for time immemorial, and those of recent origins. Yeah, this comes back to this point about being adaptable, yeah, according to new circumstances. This is perhaps most evident in the diaspora, where under extreme conditions of oppression and subjugation, slavery and colonialism, new forces were made manifest and added to the cosmological pantheon. In Haiti, for example, new forces are referred to as petro, yeah, spirits, and are similar also found in Cuba and Brazil. So petro, you have 2 groups of Loa in Haiti, the Haitian Vodan, yeah. You have the petro and the Rada. The Rada are the older, yeah, the more mature divinities that come from the continent. All right. The petro are they call it the hot ones, yeah, who were developed in Haiti specifically to deal with or within the context of the enslavement and colonization system. Yeah. So the petro divinities are a bit more volatile, yeah. Then we chop off your neck, you know what I'm saying? Because when we're there in our oppression, without for know of a chop off some neck, you know what I mean? You know, and so the petro channel the chop off the neck energy, you know what I mean? The burn down plantation vibration, you know, adapt them differ. And that's not to say that the Rada don't deal with that, but the petro is specifically designed and come in that environment, you know, where things have to burn up, yeah, and dash way, and slap up, and chop up, and shut up, and all them something there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You have to know these things. All right. Continuing, an example being the force of Agayu in Santeria and the Santeria pantheon. Yeah. And this is Santeria in Cuba now. All right. An essence correlating with the power of the volcano, but absent in the original pantheon of the Yoruba, presumably because of the fact of the absence of volcanoes in this terrain. Where we are saying that again, because African spiritual systems are centered on harmony, yeah, with nature, as we say, we don't believe in a God, we dance with God, yeah, and dancing with God is harmony with nature. All right. And so wherever environment you put an African spiritual system in, it will mold itself around the natural environment. So in a Nigeria, yeah, or what is now called Nigeria, in Yoruba land, we're not a volcano. Yeah. No volcano no exists. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Them place there. Volcano exists in Cuba and various places in the Caribbean. All right. And South and Central America and all them something there. So you will find that because a volcano is a powerful force in nature, yeah, they will develop, or our ancestors develop a principle, yeah, and encapsulate that natural energy within an orisha, if that makes sense. All right. So the spiritual system evolves. Yeah. The spiritual system develops. All right. We don't claim to have the all-seeing eye. We never claim say no revelation come for we until we everything we need to know forever and ever. Yeah. No, we overstand and say life continue. And so we always have things to learn. And the things that we will learn will be personified and encapsulated and deified within our cosmology and our spiritual consciousness. All right. So we ever done that this up. You know, see, we ever done that this up. Yeah. And I want yeah, sorry, Kings and Queens. Me hit the wrong button. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, we want done that this up, and we want to take you go Saint Cry very quickly. Yeah. And then we're going to take you go Saint Lucia. Anybody who's got a question at this point, feel free to ask it now. While I take you to go to Saint Croix, and I'm going to introduce you to one of my mamas. Yeah. My mama them, you know, see. Yeah, we're gonna take it to one of my mama them, you know, and we're gonna talk about bambule, yeah, or bambula, which is a tradition found in various different places, but specifically today we're gonna talk about Saint Croix, yeah, in the Virgin Islands. The mama that I'm gonna introduce you to is called Mama Chenzira, yeah, Kaina, and not only is she the queen of Bambula, she is also a Garveyite, yeah, and the head of the UNIA ACL, the Universal Negro Improvement Association, and African Communities League in the Virgin Islands. Yeah, I want you to know them something there. And big up to the people that will love talk about what the Pan Africanists and talk about Africa and the world and the Caribbean. Fool, for shut up. Yeah, because you don't know what I talk about. But we're gonna take it to St. Croix to meet Mama Chenzida, who is doing some serious work, yeah, out there in St. Croix, contrary to popular belief. Why is that screen still shit? Oh, okay, that's supposed to stop sharing now. All right. Okay, well, you can still hear me. Let me know you can still hear me. You know what I mean? I want to know what brought on the ginger wine vibration. Yo, yeah, try temper, you know. Yeah, try temper, Mr. Bunya. But yeah, man, so we're going to take it to the Pan-African Garveyite to the St. Croix. I want to emphasize that. St. Croix is in the Caribbean, you know what I mean? The Virgin Islands, which is currently neo-colonized by the US, the United States of America. You know what I mean? Yeah, so lightning and earthquake for certain argument. You know what I mean? You know, thunder roll. You know, yeah, man, I'm invoking the petrol energy because things have to burn up around here. All right. So yeah, just taking the vibes in it. I'm not gonna talk for the whole of this video, yeah. Well, I may. We'll see what I got. But you know, but yeah. So for those who are just joining us, let me explain something before I go into this thing. I'm gonna repeat my explanation. Basically, I'm planning to do a presentation on African spiritual systems in the Caribbean, particularly as connected to anti-colonial and anti-slavery rebellions and revolution. Yeah, and this is partly because I've been involved in a lot of religious conversation over the last week or so, and we haven't really delved into African spiritual systems in the Caribbean. And I know many brothers and sisters who have been tuning in are from the Caribbean, and so we want to talk about our spiritual systems, our culture, yeah, as it evolved in the Caribbean as well. All right, because it's African same way. All right, so I'm gonna press play Let me know if there are any issues. If you have any questions, let me know. And if you want to come live with me, let me know as well while the video's playing. All right. Blessings.
I'm Chinzira Davis Kahina, and I'm going to be sharing some of my work in regard to the Bambula from the perspective of being the co-founding Ankh Collaborative developer, founder, if you will, of Parent Ankh University Institute, which is dedicated to culture, healing, arts, technology, and spirituality for life, inspiration, freedom, and education, chats for life. And the reason I start there is primarily because as a director within Parent University Institute, the Bambula tradition, the whole restoration component of the Bambula here in the Virgin Islands, it's focused originally on St. Croix and the traditions of communication, of dance, of theater, of music, of song in that regard. And then it expanded to what were the traditions sustained, maintained, kept in place historically in St. Thomas as well as St. John. And through that research, I was able to identify that the Bambula may have had different names, but the reference of having a dance of resistance, a dance that was banned because of its very African foundations and roots, it was all over the Caribbean. As a matter of fact, we found it even in the southern parts of the United States. We found it in certain parts of Central and South America in regard to the dance step style, the same all white attire, and many the head ties, the connections to the enslavement experience, but the connections to the empowering experiences and the resilience and the endurance of enslaved Africans in the Western Hemisphere. So when we speak of the historical foundations of the bamboo, I want to quantify that and speak of the restoration of bamboo in St. Croix. And it was an actual project that I started to do research on about 20 plus years ago to really look into what was it that we were seeing that was so similar in these dance step styles. What was this waving of the skirts? What was the significance of women doing these different sensual dances? Some persons took it to a more sexual engagement, but the older persons, when you started to do the research on a historical construct, I should say, it was connected to communicating, whether it was around initiation, whether it was around naming ceremonies, whether it was around marriage, whether it was around coming of age, whether it was around death, whether it was around resistance. And so we started to go forward, I should say, into history and begin to look at what were the names, for example. We know of Bambula as bomba, very similar type of dance step style with a more staccato, quote unquote, Afro Latino rhythm in its foundation. But bomba is that same dance of resistance, that same communicative kind of art form between the drummer, the dancer, and spirit. The We also saw, like in Haiti, there was what they call tambula, very similar, again, all white, usually connected to the spiritual system. Some people call voodoo, which is all about just spirit.
Yeah, family. I was gonna ask you about the sound here because it seemed like a lot to me too. But at the moment, there's nothing I can do about that. Yeah. Unfortunately. So if you can hear it, then good. Just open up your ears a little more, and I'm saying, but there's nothing I can really do about the level. So apologies for that. But yeah, in fact, there's maybe one thing I can do. I'm not sure, but we'll see.
Not an obia negative anything, but just about spirit and invoking that which brings greatness and goodness through the dance and making it a communicative art, again, between the drummer communicating with the dancer communicating with the drummer, and then the songs about resistance and upliftment and liberation and freeness, not just freedom, but freeness. So that's a portion of the historical aspect of the bambula, and just knowing it as not witnessing goodness through the dance and making it a communicative art, again, between the drummer communicating with the dancer communicating with the drummer, and then the songs about resistance and upliftment and liberation and freeness, not just freedom, but freeness. So that's a portion of the historical aspect of the bambula, and just knowing it as not only a dance, not only a song, not only music, but a form of communication that really is ancestral and grounded in the African tradition.
More roofs to repair, more houses to clean, more.
You know, it's there are many. So I when we talk about the bambula, the legacy in the Virgin Islands of those that know of the bambula, many of the families that know don't even want anyone to know that they know because it was shunned. It was made illegal. People were in prison. People lost limbs. Some may have lost their lives for doing these drumming rhythms, dances around fire in the forest. It was perceived as Satan worship. It was perceived as something demonic, and that if you were a good enslaved African, you wouldn't do those things. You would only do that which is holy or upright in the context of an enslavement society that was committing genocide and destroying the very fabric of the humanity of enslaved Africans. So when you speak of the legacy, some of the families are the Matthias family, and that's particularly in St. John. Some have gone through, St. Thomas, St. Croix as well, Tortola, through the British Virgin Islands, Jules Van Dyke, Anegada, as far Virgin Gorda. There's a large legacy of those traditional bearers, those cultural tradition bearers, rather, that are legacy keepers of the Bambula tradition. You have Marianne Christopher, and I'm kind of jumping because when I speak of Matthias, then I would go to Christopher, I would have to go to George's, I would need to speak of the Donovan. I'm speaking of family names because it was not only the women that knew this is Bambula Queens, but we had master drummers that knew the rhythms. They knew how to make the drums out of these barrels, from the old sugar rum factory barrels, and they would produce these phenomenal percussion instruments.
What one thing I want to highlight here, yeah, but it's sounding better, by the way. Just let me know. And when we say we should talk about queens, yeah. She said not just queens. The reason why she said not just queens is because in a lot of these spiritual retentions, the central organizing figure is often a queen. It's often a woman. Yeah. It's often a woman at the center. You find the same in Kumina. Yeah. I've heard of Kumina kings, but they're very few and far between. Mostly you find Kumina queens, yeah, that lead the thing. That's not to say that the men don't have a role and a leading role, but it just so happens that in a lot of these traditions, women govern the thing. Yeah. So it's just there's something to highlight there. Did I learn when you say learn? No, I learned how to make djembe drum in Ghana. But I've been to Motown in Jamaica. I want to learn how to make the kubla drum them, So I've been told when I go back, if my vibration is correct, then the man them can teach, So we'll see what I go at, So we'll see what I go at. Mr. Bunya, I don't know too much about African spiritual systems in Dominica. That is something to research. Having said that, I tend to find that Uno and the Lucian them tend to share enough, even though I know there's a civil war between Uno. So the Lucian them and the Dominican them now gonna like the hear that say them something there, every say them something there. But yeah, that's what I tend to find in it. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. I guess we'll leave that there until I've done further research, right? We're going to get back into this vibration.
And so you have a drum that is like it's like a quote unquote like a big barrel, and it is equivalent to some in terms of the bass sound, but that keeps the tone for the whole boom, 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 boom. It kind of keeps it together when you're doing that type of a rhythm. And we started to, and when I say we, I'm speaking of in terms of the research that I've been engaged in, with some of the work that I've done um, in teaching at the University of the Virgin Islands, and also in terms of the direction around the Virgin Islands Caribbean Cultural Center at UVI. It has expanded some of my writings so I can speak to these families that were instrumental to maintaining that tradition over a course of time. So many of the things that we learned from Mrs. Assassina, many of the things that we learned from Miss McIntosh, they may have sung it first and then showed us the movement that went with that lyric or that sound, that song, and then teach that to the drummer so that there was like three different layers of comprehension and engagement on sustaining this tradition that many people didn't permit, for example, in the church. It wasn't permissible. It was seen as over sexualized. Even in literature, they refer to the bambula as like a gyrating movements that are spastic and demonic or diabolical in focus. And it's not seen as energetic dance that is spiritually centered and connected to the one most high. It's amazing that it goes from something very sacred to something evil beyond anything positive that could be secular. So these families were able to sustain that, and in many instances as an underground. I mean, there's certain elders that I speak to now about the bambula. Oh, I know about that, but I don't want to talk about that. And you'll hear that on it's not infrequent that you'll hear that. They're more comfortable because quadrille, which is a very light, more waltzy, I mean, they actually do the waltz type of dance step style, is based on some of the same postures and gestures of the bamboo. It's just more acceptable and more sanitized and more conservative, if you will. And we have those families. I come forth to Marianne Christopher because she was one of the long-standing bambula queens from St. Croix, but had made St. Thomas her home for more than 35, probably close to 40 years. And with the McIslin Bambula Dance Company and with the Joseph Gomez School Bambula Company, from back in the 80s, she sustained a constant core of teaching, and she reinforced it. So we have some generations, at least going on 3 generations of bambula dancers that have been exposed to the songs and the music and the history and the communicative component of the bambula through the legacy of Marianne Christopher. And she had the honor and privilege of working around greats like Gene Assassina. There are persons like Leona Brady Watson, who was instrumental to teaching us not only the music, the lyrics, the songs, the history, the accurate history, pulling archives as a multi-generational Virgin Islander. And she, again, developed a generation long legacy of persons that are knowledgeable of what the bambula is, and that it wasn't just celebratory. It was the dance of resistance. It was the dance of liberation.
All right. Yeah, so I played that because I want. First of all, I love Mama Chenzida. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, she's one of my favorite people in the world. But you can hear that they've had to go through a lot of work, yeah, to revive and rescue this tradition, because again, it's another African spiritual retention that was banned and frowned upon and stigmatized and demonized in the Caribbean. All right. And it's also another spiritual form that is commonly associated with a dance, and a dance that has been considered sexual. All right. And my brother Talawa, yeah, has said that this relates because there was a conversation about whether twerking, yeah, is African or not. And I had a lot to say about that conversation still, which I haven't said. But yeah, there's two elements of this in my mind. The first element is the fact that our being was considered evil in general, so all of our dances were considered vulgar. Yeah, because European Western society has two extremes. It doesn't have a middle ground. So you're either super ultra what's the word, conservative, yeah, and asexual to a degree, or you're super hypersexual, yeah. And so we have both dynamics that have affected us as a people. We have the condemnation of our spiritual traditions because we were capable of expressing sexuality within a spiritual context, yeah. Understanding that sex is spiritual, yeah. And so the dances will often evoke that energy. And even sometimes the dance is not necessarily designed to evoke that energy, but the black and white is beautiful. So, you know, it just say go, you know what I'm saying? But within that context, yeah, whatever the context of the dance is, people will understand the dance and would know how to properly relate to the dance, yeah, whether it's man or woman doing the dance. But then I think it would also be true to say that a lot of our traditions have been commercialized and therefore desacralized, right? So when we say it's good to wine, everything is, you know, we love to wine, but then there are contexts in which we wine, whereby there's a sacredness and there's a significance that is often lost, yeah, within Western hypersexualization and pornographic culture. And so our traditions, as far as I'm concerned, are not what's the word? What's it called? What's the word? I'm missing this word, you know. Well, anyway, but that whole Christian kind of conservatism, that's not us either. But this vulgarity is not us either, right? So we have to be careful of these things, especially when we're dealing with it in the context of deculturalization in Western society. We will often get the form without the substance. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So we have to deal more with that subject there. You know what I'm saying. But long may the black woman wine. You know what I'm saying. Long may the black woman wine. Yeah, because we love the wine still. You know what I mean. All right. All right. Now we're gonna go to St. Lucia, and then I'm done. Yeah, we're gonna go to St. Lucia, and then I'm done with this. Yeah, this is a preview, Kings and Queens. Yeah, I'm preparing a presentation entitled well, I ain't got the title yet, but it's going to relate to African spiritual systems or Pan-African spiritual systems in the Caribbean and their connection to revolutions and rebellion. That's probably going to come in a month, but I just wanted to deal with this, you know, a preliminary vibes now. Yeah. You know, the funny thing is, Bunya, Bacchus, the deity, may have a Nile Valley origin or influence, which is, yeah, that's an interesting point. I'm gonna throw that out there and leave that there. That's not to say Bacchus is a Nile Valley deity. I'm just saying may have a Nile Valley origin or influence. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So yeah, man. All right, so we're going to St. Lucia. So be like my Lucians in the place. You know what I'm saying. No, we're not saying we're thinking up Bacchus, you know. We're not saying that still, you know. We're not saying that still. We're just saying that the energy of dance, like Shango, yeah, is a masculine dance and drum energy. You and I know when we are play bata, a Shango drum we are beat. So when you look at the dances that's done around, you know, the bata or the you were here at the beginning, but I was playing a video of a Haiti Vudan ceremony, yeah. And you'll see a lot of them kind of dances. Now, what I will say is this, though. What I will say is this, yeah, that all African dance and all African ritual dance is not centered around the waist and the waistline, yeah. So there are a lot of dances, yeah, that may involve the waist because we dance with our whole bodies, all right. But we use our arms and our feet and our legs and even our head and our chest, yeah, and all kinds of different things, all right. And so whenever you see, in my humble estimation, forms that almost exclusively privilege, the midsection, yeah, it suggests to me that there are other elements that are missing, yeah, that are not being as accentuated, if that makes sense, yeah, because our bodies, we dance with our whole bodies, and the body, different parts of the body will also be representative of different concepts. So I was watching a video with a Yoruba sister who was breaking down Yoruba language, and she was saying that she was talking about the concept of ori, which is head and consciousness, and she was saying that because of the Igbo, sorry, the Yoruba or Ifa focus on the ori, which is the head, and the consciousness, which is represented by the head, she said you will never see any Yoruba art that doesn't feature the head, and sometimes it's just the head, yeah. And so you will have dances and rituals that emphasize the head. Right? You know what I'm saying? Whereas if we just deal with, one aspect of the self, then we are going to focus on one aspect of the self, which is the midsection, And we love the midsection still. We don't want nobody say nothing different, yeah, and nothing negative about the midsection. Midsection for roll and wine and walk up, right? And that we love and that we deal with. But, yeah, we have to have balance and everything. You know what I mean? Balance is essential. All right, so let's get to St. Lucia, and then we're done. Yeah, we're done.
The cry of the descendants of African slaves and the drum sounds of African peoples, you find that is ever present in the lives of Caribbean people. You see, as Black people continue their struggles to make a living from the land, and also from their own abundant skills too, you find that their language, their songs, their dances, all their creative expressions form the moments of celebration, and they are the sources of hope.
Peut-être partisans les monde jouer à chaud fond puis même ni ça yo nous ka côté jouer à plus chaud si jouer à plus fond encore tout monde ka couler ça si jouer le écoutez regardez jouer à chaud les monde tout le monde ka quitter jouer fond puis là ka courir les monde alors c'est quoi compétition là oui comme si nous ka dit on ka headi l'autre
The island of St. Lucia is located in the middle of this arc of islands in the Caribbean. And well, the legacy of colonialism naturally has left the imprint of European culture. Yet you find it is the African heritage which makes for what is unique in St. Lucian culture. The songs, the dance, the craft, the Creole language, all those things, they have survived the challenges of other cultures. The community of Pi is located on the southwest coast of St. Lucia. Now, Pi came into being when 8 families of laborers migrated from the neighboring estates of Balabush and Safi, so over 100 years ago, to form a community. Now, the majority of the population of what, 400, are people who have a very strong consciousness of being descendants of people of West Africa. And they call themselves, and they are called Negjine. The people in PI are still engaged in subsistence farming. And, well, those who haven't gone to the towns, they sell sand for a living.
Moi-même, pas trop essayer, mais moi,
All right. So I just wanted to touch on that still, you know. So we're done here. I want to take it to a little piece to expose the people into the Kutumba. And that was important because enough times, yeah, coming there in England, the emphasis tends to be on the English-speaking Caribbean. And because of the legacy of Haiti, then we focus on Haiti. But we have to realize that there are African spiritual tensions all over the place, yeah. And Dudu is Yoruba, by the way. So like when we say or Dudua or Olodumare, yeah, the du there is a contraction of Dudu. It means black. Yeah, so Dudu is black. It's like when you go out the shop and you say Dudu soap, yeah, Dudu is black. You know what I'm saying? So I want to highlight that. That was said in the chat. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I hit that, kings and queens, yeah. So you know what I mean? I'm preparing this presentation to go into the spiritual dimensions of African people in the Caribbean. You know, so stay tuned for that. I'll give it a couple minutes to see if there's any comments or questions that I need to read out, or if anybody is moved to come live, let me know and I'll put out the link. Yeah, if you don't, I'm gonna wait for somebody to say that they actually want to come live though, before I put it out. So if I don't see anybody, then I'll just leave it. And don't feel obliged. I'm just saying, if you want to, then we can go on with some things. You know what I mean? So yeah, let me see. You're eating, that real fool. You know what I mean? But yeah. Yeah, Talawa, you have some, yeah, man, you have some midsection vibration that come for you still, you know. So we give thanks for the midsection vibration because it brings new life, you know. You know what I mean? So we give thanks for life and look forward to the life, you know what I mean? What may I say? Yeah, nobody else nothing. All right, kings and queens. So yeah, man, in the presentation, I'm gonna delve into like Kumina. I'm gonna delve into that, but I'm gonna link it back to the Bakongo through the work of Bonseki Fukia, Baba Bonseki Fukia. I'm gonna touch upon Winti. I'm gonna touch upon the Vodan. I want to touch upon the Garifuna, yeah, in our places like St. Vincent and Guatemala, them place there. You know, I'm gonna touch upon Taki. Yeah, I'm gonna touch upon Taki as well. And we'll see what else comes. I might even have to split it into 2 parts, yeah. But enough times, yeah, we don't know where our things come from. You know what I mean? And so it's important for us to know these things and to have an understanding of our culture, you know. I remember, you know, so my brother Natural Mystic is a DJ, right? And he used to DJ at this thing, what a thing they call soca. One soca party anyway. It was a regular thing. We can't remember the name of the soca party. But it was held by Roughneck, DJ called Roughneck. Yes, I'm gonna get saved, you know? You know what I mean? So I'm gonna Christ right now still. But they used to have like clashes. And the clashes used to be island based. So you'd have a St. Lucia DJ represent St. Lucia, Dominica DJ represent Dominica, Trinidad DJ, great, you know what I'm saying, so on and so forth. And he had Montserrat, yeah, and my brother was from Jamaica, so obviously Jamaica is not really Antigua, so he would represent Antigua. But at one of these parties where it wasn't necessarily a clash, he played a song, and like we can't remember the song name, the song name from Montserrat, and the man, because the Montserratian used to love my brother, because he used to represent the thing when he used to play, and they used to do this dance, to this song, and people in the dance start cuss off the people that from Montserrat because them said they were what obvious. they were what obvious fan people in the dance because of the nature of this dance. It was a very expressive dance of these things. And so my brother had to ban it out on the mic. But the point I'm making is that we don't know where we think them come from, because the reality is there is no soca, there is no calypso, there is no wine up and hot walk and Iowa, butterfly, telele and shadow and wave and dollar wine and all these things. There is none of that without African spiritual systems and African spiritual intentions. It just don't exist. You know what I mean? It really just don't exist, and so we have to understand these things. You know what I'm saying? We have to understand these things. Yeah, man, and stop chat foolishness. You know what I mean? So yeah. So I look forward to delivering this presentation, about African spiritual systems in the Caribbean. And with a love for culture still, with a love for culture. All right. So with that, I'm not seeing anything in the chat that I need to respond to. There seems to be them want bring Dominica versus St. Lucia to my chat. Yeah, listen, upon African unity, we deal with the own line now. Yeah. Deal with them something there still. You get me? Yeah, well, lady, who vex still, Who vex. Everything is everything. You come late, my brethren. You come late, Rasta. But give thanks for bringing the Anansi vibration. Oh, that's what I should have said. We're going to some Anansi as well. We're going to the full thing. We're going to some Anansi as well. Yeah, we're going to touch on Anansi and going at that. So we're gonna keep it specifically to the Caribbean. Yeah, and going at some things. All right. Big up yourself, Ultra. Big up yourself. Thank you for the super chat. Yeah, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. You know what I'm saying? Much appreciated. Shakara, my brother. Yeah, we've got another super chat there. So we give thanks to both super chats. Yeah, man. Yeah, that's it then, isn't it? That's it then, mate. You know what I mean? All right, so I'm gonna leave you with the beautiful sounds of Mama Edda Anden. This is the mama that's been singing our Mashanga song them. Yeah. But this is one of my favorite tunes from her. So she's singing at the Calypso Monarch competition. Sometime in the 90s. We can't remember which year still, but in Trinidad. Afro Native, you come late, my brother. You come late. No, we didn't talk of Ordinani in Jamaica. But I am preparing to do a presentation on African spiritual systems in the Caribbean, specifically as related to rebellions and revolutions. Yeah. Now, I'll be honest, Ordinani in Jamaica is not something that I've studied exponentially. Yeah. So if you have information on that, share. What I was gonna go into is Mayal, what is referred to as Obia and Kumina as far as Jamaica is concerned. Yeah. Which would obviously inevitably touch on some Ordinani. But if you have specific information on Ordinani, then please do share it. Yeah, share it, and I will be most appreciative and see if I can incorporate it. All right. Right. So I got yeah, man. There's when I some on that subject. If you are not subscribed, if you're interested in African spiritual systems and you are not subscribed to a channel called The Medicine Show, subscribe to The Medicine Show. Yeah, it's a brother by the name of Derek, and he's an Igbo brother, and he goes in on the Igbo spiritual system, yeah, called Ordinani. You know what I'm saying? It's a beautiful breakdown He's on the break at the moment because he's just having a youth. He just had a youth. So we'll give thanks for life once again. But yeah, I've learned much. Yeah, I've learned much from that brother. He goes in, and the way how he explains things is beautiful. Like not just the cosmology that he's breaking down, but the way how he breaks it down is brilliant. You know what I'm saying? So do check him out. You know, yeah, man. The medicine shell. Yeah, he goes in. He blatantly goes in. All right, kings and queens, Tenda Mwali, be thankful unto the Mother, Father, Creator of the universe. You know what I mean? Kudzai Muzumukulu, give praise unto our great ancestors. Mojuba Oludumare, Mojuba Egungun, Mojuba Orisha. Giving praises unto the Creator of the universe, giving praises unto the ancestors, giving praises unto the forces and principles of nature. You know, Nyankopong Assassina Nanom Shraye. May the Creator of the universe, may the forces of nature, may our great ancestors, may Mother Earth continue to bless us all as we go throughout this year, them called 2022. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe.
Say my name, say my name, I'm an African. Say your name, say your name, say your name, we Africans. Do you have the information or a simple explanation? Tell me who gave who the authority so to change my name, my identity, to replace the brave or fair queens of life to the lives of misery and strife. You with your pale mind, you with your weak heart, no respect for human blood sacrifice or ancestors cut to the plantation. Say my name, say, I'm an African. Say your name. We Africans for survival. We need a revival. For survival, we need a revival. Turn it down. Do you know what strength and courage brought me to the middle passage? Still I strive with pride and dignity as I fight to cling to my ancestry. With these hands of steel forged in Africa and the blood of all the Yoruba. You who came dancing from my womb, now you lay silent as a tomb. It is time to wake from your life of death, time to regain all your lost respect. Say my name, I'm an African. Say your name. We Africans for survival. We need a revival. For survival, we need a revival. Say my name. Say my name. Say my name. I'm an African. Say your name. Say your name. Say your name. We Africans. Nobody else. Be As I walk this global domain, with instinct of blood in my veins, I shall shall call the children of Makeda to protect the name of our forefathers. We must never bow our proud heads again, but must stand firm in the face of pain. I am the mother and the flame. I am the keeper of your faith to a place of greatness and history. It is I who named you after me. Say my name. I'm an African. Say your name. We Africans for survival. We need a revival. Say it like you mean it. For survival, we need a revival. In the land of all the pharaohs, like the secret of our heroes. If you search, you'll find your true history and the names of all those who bothered me. Writings on the walls cannot be denied. Right for freedom, spreading far and wide. Out of this land came gods and kings, spreading their power on the wings of the might and glory of Africa. Now I hear them calling from afar. Say my name, say it, say it, say it. I'm an African. Say your name. Say, say. We Africans for survival. We need a revival. Say, say, say for survival. We need a revival. We need a revival. We need a revival. We need a revival. All the great queens of Africa. We need a revival. For Queen Candace. Hey, we need a revival. I know it, you know it, I know it, you know it. We need a revival. We need a revival. We need a revival. We need a revival for the dying children of Africa. We need a revival. We need a revival. We need a revival. We need a revival for all the women who don't know. We need a revival. We need a revival for the young princes of Africa who died. Lord, we need a revival. We need a revival. We need a revival. I know it, you know it, you don't want to own it. We need a revival. 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 We need a revival.